James Bond. Christopher Nolan. Right now he's hot. He's got Oppenheimer in theaters, and of course, a lot of people are asking him questions. He's doing interviews and stuff like that, mainly because the directors did sign off and came to an agreement with the studio. So that's why you see Christopher Nolan still able to go out there and do stuff, even though he does support the Writers Guild and the actors too, because he is a writer as well. But question that's kind of come up has been like, yo, like, could he do a James Bond movie? Would he do a James Bond movie? Like, is he even interested in doing a James Bond movie? And it's a interesting question. Back in 2017, he told Playboy, which has great articles, by the way. Just it's good for the articles, great stories and interviews. But he was interviewed by Playboy, and he said that he would definitely make a James Bond film and keeps an open dialogue with the series producers. In that article, he said that I've spoken to the producers and over the years, I deeply love the character. I'm always excited to see what they do with it. Maybe one day that would work out. You'd have to be needed, if you know what I mean. It has to need reinvention. It has to need you, and they're getting along very well. Well, that sounded like my man was kind of putting the feelers out there a little bit, like it has to be needed. You have to be needed. Now this was back in 2017, so it sounded like, and I want you to think about the date. Sounded like my man was like, yeah, I talked to them. We keep on, we slide into the DMs, but I'm gonna need somebody to need me. Everybody want to be wanted, and I want to be wanted. See, let's not forget, Christopher Nolan is a guy who used to have almost, I wouldn't say it was exclusive, but he primarily worked with Warner Brothers for a lot of his movies. And the last movie he worked on with them was Tenet. And Tenet didn't do so hot. Okay. Tenet had a lot of issues. Um, and the problem that he had was the fact that, the studios started dropping movies same day, same release on streaming. And, Christopher Nolan ain't here for that. This man be out here with these big old jumbo size IMAX cameras. He is not here for you to watch his movies on your laptop or on your phone. That is not what he goes out to do. So he had a big, big issue with Warner Brothers and was like, I'm out. Okay. He was like LeBron James and was like, yo, I'm gonna take my talents over there to what is it, Universal, Paramount, whatever. He was like, I'm out of here. And that's why he's making Oppenheimer with a different studio. But at the same time, my man was like, yo, if y'all want, if y'all, I like James Bond, if y'all came and hollered at a brother, I'd be down. I'd be interested, you know. And if you notice, like I said, was in 2017. Have y'all seen Tenet with my man John David Washington, aka Denzel Washington's son? My brother was looking pretty James Bondish. He looked like he could play the part. Now, I'm not saying that John David Washington should be the next James Bond, even though I would have no problem with that. Well, actually, he's not English, so it would be kind of off. But I thought that what Christopher Nolan did with the character in terms of how he presented him to us, I thought that was a nice little taste, pre-audition of what it would be like if he were to have a James Bond movie. Now, in absolutely no way should James Bond be out there doing time travel and all this other backward nonsense. No way. But it looked like my man can handle the action scenes and all of that stuff. But anyway, Christopher Nolan recently was asked again about this idea of doing a James Bond movie. And my man responded once again. And let's see, we'll hear what he said. It was brought up Would he ever direct the James Bond movie? And he said the influence of those movies in my filmography is embarrassingly apparent. Like I said, go see Tenet. It would be an amazing privilege to do one. At the same time, when you take on a character like that, you're working with a particular set of constraints. Ooh, do tell. He says it has to be the right moment in your creative life where you can express what you want to express and really burrow into something within the appropriate constraints, because you would never want to take on something like that and do it wrong. He concluded that if it were, he concluded that if he is to be involved in any project, he must embrace completely as a creative. You wouldn't want to take on a film without being fully committed to what you bring to the table creatively. So as a writer, casting, everything, it's a full package, he said. You have to be really needed and wanted in terms of bringing in the totality of what you bring to a character. Otherwise, I'm happy to be the first in line to see whatever they do. Yo. My man right here was saying a lot without saying a lot, but he said a lot. Let me tell you, first of all, did y'all catch the part where he said that it was a lot of constraints? Basically, this is what he's saying. I'll do y'all James Bond movie. I love to do your James Bond movie. I got to be the boss. I wants to do all the work. I got to be the director, the writer, the casting. I want to do it all. That is what I want. You know, that's tricky. Because while I understand Christopher Nolan can make good movies, I don't know if the Broccoli producers would want to give Christopher Nolan full range. Do you want Christopher Nolan casting your James Bond? I don't know about that. Because this is the character that you guys have control over. This is a character that, and here's the other thing. How many movies is Christopher Nolan going to do? Because if he's only going to do one movie, that means that somebody else is going to have to pick up the slack. Maybe James Bond did something. And it sounds like the producers want to do like maybe another trilogy, maybe another 4-part movies, something that's all connected. Now, they could counter. They could be like, oh, okay, yeah, you could come in. Yeah. But we going to pick the Bond. And you're going to have to do almost all the movies. I don't know if Christopher Nolan wants to do that. You know, so it could be something similar to how they worked out, you know, Christopher Nolan worked out with The Dark Knight. Like where he was like, yo, I'm doing the trilogy and that's it. Maybe. Personally, I don't think I want Christopher Nolan doing James Bond. I don't think so. Especially if he wants to do everything. If he wants to do all the writing and all the directing and all the nah, bro, that's a miss for me. And I'm a Christopher Nolan fan. For me, one thing that I like about James Bond movies is that when we get a different director, we get a different flavor, we get a different taste, we get a different feel for James Bond. And I like that because it keeps the character fresh, in my opinion. If you don't like one movie, it's cool. I love Casino Royale. I didn't really care for Quantum of Solace. You know, like you can kind of mix it up a little bit and you know what you're getting. Imagine if Christopher Nolan did the first James Bond movie and it's not that well. Imagine if it was like Tenet and it was kind of divisive. You really going to look forward to the second one? Do you really want to put all your eggs in one basket at this point? That's kind of risky. It's kind of risky. And again, shout out to Christopher Nolan. We know that he's a great director, but at the same time, do you want all that unnecessary risk when you could just be like, we can keep control and we can just do what we want? Last thing I've also am apprehensive with is when you look at the movies from Christopher Nolan in the last 10 years, they have not been as good as his movies 10 years prior to that. I'm talking about like when you go from Memento, The Prestige, Inception, Dark Knight, even Interstellar. Those movies hit different compared to Tenet, Dunkirk, Oppenheimer. They hit very different. And I think that in his latter, more recent stuff, he's had more control and he's been able to do more stuff with like just on his own. And in my opinion, what ends up happening is he gets inside his head too much. And he sometimes forgets that the average audience that's watching his movies, we all don't have physics degrees. We all don't have PhDs in history. And sometimes he forgets to make what I believe are relatable emotional anchors in the movies. I don't think he's very good at that. So while he can be very technical with his movies, I think sometimes he loses some of the human connection that's needed that we go into the movies for, you know. And James Bond is a character that you need me to connect with this character. You know, this is the thing. So I look at something like Tenet, and as much as I liked John David Washington's character, I never connected with him. We don't even know his name. He doesn't even have a name at all. But you look at something like Inception, and we connected with Leo's character. We understood what was driving him. We had a bet, but for whatever reason, Nolan just don't lean on that, or he forgot to do something. I don't know. And Dunkirk, who did you connect with? Did you connect with any character? I didn't. I don't even remember none of the characters' names. If it wasn't for Oppenheimer, I'd probably forget a bunch of people's names too, outside of Oppenheimer. So anyway, you know, I think that as much as I love Nolan's work and I respect it, and I think he is one of the best directors out there, I don't think I would like for him to be a Bond director with the level of power that he says that he kind of wants. If he came in and did 1 or 2 movies, I'd be cool with that. But I would not give him full reign. I just wouldn't. And on top of that, the Bond franchise doesn't need him. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it was DC and the way DC is struggling, you better pray Christopher Nolan comes back and does anything for y'all. Pray for that. That would be a boost because y'all struggling. If you were Sony and you've been struggling with your spin-off Spider-Man stuff, and Christopher Nolan said, "Oh, I'd like to do a Spider-Man spin-off movie," you better let that man cook. You let him cook because y'all need all the help you can get. But the James Bond franchise, they don't need no help. Them movies gonna, as long as they cast somebody that works, that's charismatic, and y'all get the action and all that, people gonna show up. Who not gonna show up for a James Bond movie after 30, 40 years of James Bond movies? So anyway, y'all let me know, what do you think about this idea of Christopher Nolan coming in and, you know, potentially at least expressing his interest again in directing a James Bond movie or movies? Do you think that maybe it is a good idea to just let him come in, have full power, casting, writing, directing, let him do his thing? Do you think it'll be a great idea? Do you think maybe not so much? Whatever you think, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. This was just a segment of one of my live chats, and if you're interested in joining in on the next one, be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications for more. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all, and until next time, I'll see you all later.